UFC Fight Night Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown is taking place this weekend. Somehow we end up in the Apex once again with an even worse card than last week. But as someone who is a loser with no social life, who basically just watches UFC every Saturday, all right, I'm here to break down every single one of these fights, predicting who's going to win, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event. So without wasting any more time, let's jump right into the video. Okay, so starting off with Jackson McVey versus Robert Valentin. As someone who did enjoy Robert Valentin's uprising through tough, it's just tough to pick Robert Valentin in 2025. He's lost to a Gatier by brutal knockout. Before that, he got smushed up against Taurus Finney. And before that, he lost via submission to Ryan Loder. Now, I don't think that Jackson McVey is that much better than an Ateba Gautier or like even a Ryan Loder, but I think he's better than Robert Valentin. And quite frankly, like Robert Valentin is bottom of the barrel in the middleweight division, arguably the worst middleweight fighter on the roster right now. I'm gonna go with Jackson McVey on this one. Like he did lose to Bruno Ferreira via submission in the first round, but Bruno Ferreira's tough. Bruno Ferreira's tough, especially when you're making a short notice debut in the UFC. So I'm gonna go with Jackson McVey to outgrapple Robert Valentin as the fight progresses. I'm gonna assume it's gonna be like round 2 or 3 submission. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Can Robert Valentin just goofball max his way through, throwing like jumping elbows and stuff like that? Maybe he can get a knockout, but I don't really see it. I'm gonna go with Jackson McVey to get this done by out grappling Robert Valentin and possibly getting a submission in the later rounds. All right, now up next we got Miles Johns versus Daniel Marcos. I'm gonna go with Daniel Marcos on this one. I don't like to pick Daniel Marcos typically. However, I do not rate Miles Johns whatsoever. Like he has had competitive fights with good fighters. You know, he took Felipe Lima to a decision. He took Gene Matsumoto to a decision. Like he has cases where he's looking pretty solid, but there are other times where I'm just looking at him and going like, you should have finished like bottom of the barrel fighters. Like, I don't really think Miles Johns has the ability to force Daniel Marcos to scrap in a firefight. And that's kind of what you need to do with Daniel Marcos. Like, Miles Johns, his best weapons are the overhand right and shooting a double leg by surprise. Outside of that, he doesn't really do much of anything. Like, I know the Gene Matsumoto fight happened where he started mixing things up, but again, like I don't really trust him to do that all that often. And it's not like Daniel Marcos is that much worse than Gene Matsumoto. Like, I still think Daniel Marcos is heavily overrated. And Loki, I do feel like he had a fixed record at some point, but he's beaten a couple of guys that I rate higher than Miles Johns. You know, he beat uh Davy Grant, even though that was a robbery. It was like a close fight. I think Davy Grant's much better than Miles Johns. He beat John Castaneda. John Castaneda submitted Miles Johns in the first round. Like, simply put, the way I see this fight going, Daniel Marcos is just going to be able to pick his shots because Miles Johns, the only thing he has that's threatening to Daniel Marcos is a right hand and a surprise double leg. I don't see Miles Johns being able to finish the fight. Whereas I could possibly see Daniel Marcos finishing the fight as the fight progresses. He builds into fights. It's just hard for him to like really throw anything in the first few rounds. But by rounds 2 and 3, when Miles Johns slows down, I think Daniel Marcos is gonna pick up the pace and beat Miles Johns by either 29-28 decision or maybe a late round TKO. All right, up next we got Tecia Pennington versus Denise Gomis. I'm gonna go with Tecia Pennington on this one. I think she's just way better than anybody Denise Gomis has really fought recently. Like, yes, she beat Elise Reed. Welcome to the club. So as nearly everybody else. Like, that's your participation trophy in the women's strawweight division. I do admit though Denise Gomis has like a lot of KO potential, which is a big plus in women's MMA. But again, she's not really doing it against someone who's like actually pretty good. Like Elise Reed, I don't think belongs in the UFC, and I don't really rate any other of Denise Gomez's win over the last couple of years. Whereas Tecia Pennington, yes, she arguably lost to Carla Esparza, but she arguably should have beat Tabitha Ricci, and Tabitha Ricci is a top 8 strawweight in the UFC somehow. Maybe she was 9, but anyway, she's a top 10 strawweight. And Tecia Pennington has been going to a lot of solid decisions with other fighters as well. So I'm gonna go with Tecia Pennington to get the job done. I'm gonna say by 30-27 decision. Like, I think she just has way too much experience. I think she is the better mixed martial artist. She'll be able to dictate where the fight goes. And even though Denise Gomez is strong, she's powerful, she's got the right hand of doom, it doesn't seem to translate against ranked level opposition. And I think Tecia Pennington will be able to do enough over the course of 3 rounds to get the decision win. Okay, so up next we got Josh Hokit versus Max Gimenis. I'm not even gonna pretend I know who Max Gimenis is. What I do know is that Max Gimenis is largely unproven. He's had a lot of dodgy fights where he's getting knocked out by someone with negative records. Whereas Josh Hokit, like, yeah, you could say he's also untested, but at the same time, he did look in the good in the Dana White's Contender Series. And I think Josh Hokit will be able to outstrike Max Gimenis, who has solid jiu-jitsu apparently, but again, he's losing to a bunch of guys with not so great records in the regional section of the heavyweight division. Like, I just don't think Max Gimenis got this one. Plus, the UFC want Josh Hokit to win. Like, can Josh Hokit just be a complete fraud? I could totally see that, but I think it's gonna take a little bit before we see Josh Hokit get actually tested, and I think it's gonna be against someone who's actually pretty good, and that someone who's actually pretty good is not Maxi Menace. So yeah, Josh Hokit should win this fight. I'll say by round 2 TKO. Where he has Maxi Menace up against the fence. Maybe he shoots a takedown on Maxi Menace and then ground and pound TKOs him, but probably not because Maxi Menace does have solid jiu-jitsu from what I'm hearing. I just don't think Maxi Menace is the guy to fraud check Josh Hokit at this point in his career. So I'm gonna go with Josh Hokit to win this fight pretty cleanly. All right, now up next we got Mayra Bueno Silva versus Jacqueline Cavalcanti. This is pretty straightforward. I'm gonna go with Jacqueline Cavalcanti on this one. Like genuinely, you have to question this. How the hell did Mayra Bueno Silva ever challenge for a belt in the women's bantamweight division? Lost to Raquel Pennington, where they had arguably the shittiest fight you've ever watched. Lost to Macy Chasson, where Mayra Bueno Silva couldn't do much of anything. Lost to Jasmine Jesuda Vicious, where she just got outgrappled for 3 rounds. Like Mayra Bueno Silva, like it's tough. It really is. She's on a 3-fight loss streak. I don't think she's gonna beat Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Now, Jacqueline Cavalcanti isn't all that proven, but from the eye tests, I think she's pretty good. She knows how to pick her opponents apart. That's rare in women's MMA, whereas Mayra Bueno Silva will just throw punches like a tard and gas herself out as the fight progresses. And even if the fight hits the ground, like when's the last time Mayra Bueno Silva's ever submitted anybody? Like at best, she'll be able to hold down Jacqueline Cavalcanti for a couple of minutes, but realistically, Jacqueline Cavalcanti will be the girl who just picks apart Mayra Bueno Silva. Has Mayra Bueno Silva entering in with her hard punches, and we're probably gonna say goodbye to Mayra Bueno Silva after this. Like one of the worst title challengers in recent history. Like, oh my gosh, like it's just the fact that she challenged Raquel Pennington for the vacant women's bantamweight title. The thought of that disgusts me. So I'm gonna go with Jacqueline Cavalcanti to piece up Mayra Bueno Silva 30-27. And hopefully we don't have to deal with Mayra Bueno Silva anymore at this point in 2025. All right, now up next we got Adrian Yanez versus Christian Quinonez. I'm gonna go with Adrian Yanez on this one. I think this is a no-brainer. I'm surprised to see Christian Quinonez still on the roster. Like his last fight against Hani Barcelos, he got dominated and submitted pretty easily. Even before that, he lost to uh, Kang Kwang Ho. I think that was the name of the guy. Like he got submitted there as well. Now, it's interesting to say that Adrian Yanez, he doesn't have a submission game. All he does is box, and he doesn't have that much defense in the first place either. But at the same time, though, I think Adrian Yanez is better than Christian Quinonez. I don't think that's a hot take. Christian Quinonez has not really beaten anybody in the UFC that's kind of noteworthy. And there's just no way that I can see Christian Quinonez, who hasn't fought since 2024 of February, to really amount a comeback or anything like that. So I'm gonna go with Adrian Yanez to piece up Christian Quinonez throughout the fight. Maybe get a TKO. All right, this is obvious what the UFC is doing. They're trying to build Adrian Yanez back up by having him can crush a little bit. And these are one of the cans, unfortunately. So I'm gonna go with Adrian Yanez to get the job done by piecing apart Christian Quinonez. Right now, up next we got Hyder Amil versus Jamall Emmers. I'm gonna go with Hyder Amil on this one. Like Jamall Emmers, again, he has a few wins in his UFC career, but who's it against? Gabriel Miranda, Dennis Bazooka. Like, congrats, you just got your participation trophies in the featherweight division. Now, outside of that, he lost to Nate Landwehr, who's not a bad loss, but you can't be getting finished by Nate Landwehr in the first round. Nate Landwehr is a guy who kind of builds into fights by just making it a dirty scrap. And if you're getting knocked out by Nate Landwehr in the first round, where Nate Landwehr is at his slowest, it's tough. It really is. Now, there are some questions regarding Hyder Emil's durability. You know, he got absolutely butchered by Jose Miguel Delgado. But I think Jose Miguel Delgado is legit. Jose Miguel Delgado is good. And he has a lot of skills. His shot selection is really great. Whereas I don't see that same level of technical ability from Jamall Emmers. And I don't think Hyder Emil's really going to have to fear uh, him possibly getting clipped. Like, can Jamall Emmers put away Hyder Meal? Possibly. Maybe, but Hyder Meal's known for that durability. And I don't think Jamall Emmers is really going to have much to offer past the first round. And I don't see Jamall Emmers knocking out Hyder Meal in the first round because, again, he doesn't have the technical ability of someone like a Jose Miguel Delgado. Like, this is all dependent on whether or not Hyder Meal's chin is completely cooked. I'm gonna assume it's not, so I'm gonna say that Hyder Meal uh walks down Jamall Emmers as the fight progresses and wins via round 2 or 3 TKO. Alright, now up next we got Christian Leroy Duncan versus Marco Tulio. I'm gonna go with Marco Tulio on this one. Marco Tulio is the much better fighter, according to the eye test. Like Christian Leroy Duncan, here and there can have fun scraps, but most of the time it's just him holding people up against the cage. It's very uneventful when a Christian Leroy Duncan fights, like unless he's fighting someone like a Gregory Rodriguez. And outside of that, I just don't really rate anything Christian Leroy Duncan does particularly well. Like he doesn't game plan all that well. He lets fighters trying to like make comebacks. Like what the last Russian can that Christian Leroy Duncan fought on the UK card, he kind of let the Russian guy just stick into the fight for a very long time, where he had clear opportunities to try and put him away. I just don't like I just don't rate Christian Leroy Duncan whatsoever against like good levels of competition. Whereas Marco Tulio, I think is good competition. I know he beat Trayshawn Gore, was not all that, but the eye test tells me that Marco Tulio is legit. Like his striking is something to behold in the middleweight division. Like it's such beautiful combinations. He's like the Mauricio Ruffi of the middleweight division. Hopefully that doesn't come to bite him back, where Christian Leroy Duncan can possibly just aggro max his way through. But I don't think Christian Leroy Duncan has the aggression. I don't think Christian Leroy Duncan has the technical ability, especially in the grappling, to just occupy Marco Tulio throughout the fight. And on the feet, he's also pretty chinny, right? Like he has been getting dropped in a couple of his fights. I know he fucking beat Eric Anders. Well, that's Eric Anders. Marco Tulio is way better than Eric Anders. So I'm gonna go with Marco Tulio to get the job done by round 2 TKO. I think that's when Marco Tulio really shines. And I think Marco Tulio is gonna put on a masterclass against Christian Leroy Duncan. All right, now up next we got Ricky Simone versus Raoni Barcelos. I'm gonna go with Ricky Simone on this one. I was tempted to pick Raoni Barcelos because Raoni Barcelos is a very underrated fighter. However, I think Raoni Barcelos is a ranked fighter depending on the matchups he gets. All right. He's very good against primary strikers who don't really like to wrestle, who like to pick their shots from long range. But that's not Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone will get up in your face. Ricky Simone will love to wrestle. Ricky Simone, he's a pressure fighter who can fight with elite level boxing and wrestling. Raoni Barcelos, I don't think his game plan of just being able to take his opponents down is going to work because it's very hard to control Ricky Simone. Like, yes, Ricky Simone's lost a couple of fights, but those fights are to the likes of Song Yadong. Song Yadong's arguably one of the best boxers in the bantamweight division. He lost to Mario Bautista, where Mario Bautista had a beautiful guard game in his jiu-jitsu and was able to pick apart Ricky Simone with long combinations and has lost to Vinicius Oliveira. Vinicius Oliveira is also very dangerous. He hits with a lot of power. He's very strong. I don't think Raoni Barcelos has any of those traits. Raoni Barcelos primarily wins by control grappling and possibly finding submissions. And you're not controlling Ricky Simone. Right? Ricky Simone, I could also see him getting a TKO in this situation. There are questions regarding Raoni Barcelos' chin, especially after he got knocked out by Umar Nurmagomedov. Like, I know Umar Nurmagomedov's good, but he ain't got that one punch knockout power, and he did it against Raoni Barcelos. That was his only one punch knockout KO throughout his UFC career. So I'm gonna go with Ricky Simone to get the job done by round 2 TKO, stuffing Raoni Barcelos' takedowns, pressuring Raoni Barcelos up against the cage. I can also see Ricky Simone being able to being the one to shoot the takedowns because I don't think Raoni Barcelos' jiu-jitsu is good enough to where he can like sweep Ricky Simone or possibly submit him. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Ricky Simone to get the job done by round 2 TKO. All right, now up next we got Chris Padilla versus Ismael Bonfim. I'm gonna go with Chris Padilla on this one, and the reason I say that is because I trust in Chris Padilla's consistency. Ismael Bonfim, like he has flashes of brilliance here and there, but he's also looked pretty mid in a couple of his fights. Like he had a beautiful debut against Terrence McKinney where he found the flying knee. But outside of that, he's lost to Benoit Saint-Denis. He had a very iffy decision with 43-year-old Vince Bichelle. Like, please put away Vince Bichelle in 2024. And then he fought Nazim Salikhov, where Nazim Salikhov climbed a beautiful question mark kick, and the fight was stopped due to I think it was an eye injury, where like Ismael Bonfim's eye was swollen up really badly. Now I don't think Chris Padilla can do something like what Nazim Sadikhov did, but I just trust in Chris Padilla's ability to pick his shots better. Right, Ismael Bonfim just seems like a fighter who has to throw the perfect shot in order to win his fights. Right, like Terrence McKinney fight again. The flying knee was beautiful, but that's because Terrence McKinney has a bad habit of ducking down every time he gets pressure. Whereas Chris Padilla, like, yes, he doesn't do well if he's the guy to really uh force all of the exchanges. But at the same time, Chris Padilla, he gets a lot better. He has a lot more variety in his shots. He can also damage Ismael Bonfim pretty badly. You know, he's got the nice spinning elbows where he can cut people up. I think Chris Padilla just has more weapons over the course of 3 rounds. Ismael Bonfim's known to gas out as the fight progresses. So I think Chris Padilla just gonna use his experience, pick apart Ismael Bonfim throughout the fight, and ultimately win this by either late round doctor stoppage or by 30-27 decision. All right, now up next we got Muslim Salikhov versus Uros Medic. I'm gonna go with Muslim Salikhov on this one. Uros Medic just seems like a fighter who crushes cans, but the second he gets like a pretty sizable jump up in competition, I don't think his chin really has the ability to hang around with decent level prospects at welterweight. Like, and I think Muslim Salikhov's like pretty good. Like Uros Medic, yes, he beat Gilbert Urbina, but that's Gilbert Urbina. Welcome to the club. So was everyone else. He beat Tim Means. Welcome to the club. So was everyone else. And outside of that, he has not been looking too good. You know, he got knocked out by Puna Healy Soriano, which isn't a bad loss, but you know, he got knocked out in the first round. Muslim Salikhov, on the other hand, is he old? Yes. Is his cardio really bad? Yes, but he's been looking really solid recently. He knocked out Song Kenan in the second round with a wheel kick, and then right after that, he knocked out Carlos Leal in the first round. Like, Muslim Salikhov's got some underrated pop. I know just because he's 40 years old, like, a lot of people underestimate him, including myself at one point. But I think it's time for me to put some respect on the OG's name. So I'm gonna go with Muslim Salikhov to KO Uros Medic. If I had to pick, probably by wheel kick in the first round. Maybe not. Like, I could see Muslim Salikhov being able to pull a pull counter on Uros Medic, but I just see Muslim Salikhov being the better striker, and I think he's gonna be faster than Uros Medic, which is something to note. Uros Medic, outside of the right hook, doesn't have that many tools in his arsenal, so I'm going to go with Muslim Salikhov to get the job done by first round TKO. Alright, now up next we got Matt Schnell versus Joseph Morales. Now this is the co-main event of a UFC event in 2025. I have no idea, but it is. So I'm going to have to go with Joseph Morales on this one. Listen, it's just too tough to pick Matt Schnell in 2025. Like, yes, he beat Jimmy Flick. Jimmy Flick doesn't belong in the UFC. And outside of that, Matt Schnell has been on the receiving end of nasty finishes. He got ninja choked by Cody Durden, and that loss hasn't aged all that well. He lost to Steve Urseg via round 2 TKO. That no, not TKO. It was a flatline left hook. And that loss hasn't aged well. He got KO'd by Mateusz Nicolau. Mateusz Nicolau has since been cut from the UFC. He lost to Brandon Royval. Brandon Royval's good, but he doesn't have that crazy knockout power. And the only time he's been able to show it was against Matt Schnell. I just don't think Matt Schnell is he don't got the chin for this, all right? And unless you're like a absolute bottom feeder like Sumo Darji or Jimmy Flick, I can't pick Matt Schnell. Right? Joseph Morales, like, he's not proven, but he did look good against the dearest guy in the final season of Tough. So I think Joseph Morales will be able to flatline Matt Schnell. Alright, this is a flyweight bout. Matt Schnell's chin is absolutely cooked at flyweight, so I'm gonna go with Joseph Morales to get the job done via round 1 or 2 TKO. Alright, now up next we got Gabriel Bonfim versus Randy Brown. I'm gonna go with Randy Brown on this one. Now, I'm not just gonna use the reason of, oh, Gabriel Bonfim shouldn't have won his last fight with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Right? Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's good. My issue, however, is the fact that Gabriel Bonfim, what he showed me against Wonderboy Thompson, is that he doesn't have that great of a dominant grappling game. His striking's alright, but it's very simplistic. Wonderboy was able to pick him apart. Now, I don't think Randy Brown's necessarily got the slickness of a Wonderboy, but he is a lot more in his prime, and he hits a lot harder than a Wonderboy Thompson. And he has a lot more variety because Randy Brown does love to mix in punches a lot more. than Wonderboy Thompson. I think Brown's gonna get ranked. I ultimately believe that. And Gabriel Bonfim, like, there's still a lot of questions with him. Like, yeah, he was able to submit Chaos Williams, but Chaos Williams hasn't been looking too good recently. So it's like, can you implement your grappling against elite level competition? Like, yeah, he was able to take down Wonder Boy, but he was nowhere near close to any sort of submission whatsoever. And I think Randy Brown, like, he has similar level takedown defense, if not slightly better than Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, because Randy Brown's got some slick ass judo throws that are very underrated. And if you're on the feet with Randy Brown, unless you're like a Jack Della Maddalena who just pressures Randy Brown up against the cage and has the boxing combinations, I don't think you're going to be able to do well when it comes to trying to put away Randy Brown. Randy Brown is able to just pick you apart at range, and he hits with nasty intentions, especially in his last fight with Nicholas Dalby, right? Nicholas Dalby got flatline KO'd, and Nicholas Dalby was known as this marauder who's incredibly hard to knock out. Hell, I picked Nicholas Dalby to beat Randy Brown because of that. But Randy Brown, he has that spitefulness in him now. I think he's much improved since his loss to JDM. And even the Brian Battle fight, which he technically lost, like, you could argue that he should have beat Brian Battle. So I'm gonna go with Randy Brown. I think he's proven more despite not being ranked. He has a lot more variety in the striking. Gabriel Bonfim, like, his jab and his leg kicks are good. That's about it. Um, uh, the grappling, I could see it canceling out. And I can also see Gabriel Bonfim gassing out as the fight progresses. Like, Gabriel Bonfim, he's not known for his cardio. Like, Nicholas Dalby was able to break Gabriel Bonfim in the past. And whereas Randy Brown, I don't think he's gonna push the pace necessarily, but he's not a fighter that's had to worry about cardio issues throughout his fight career. So I'm gonna go with Randy Brown to get the job done by round 2 or 3 TKO. All right, that's gonna be it for today's video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can get this channel monetized. Otherwise, though, leave a comment down below what you guys think about these fights, as well as any other video ideas you guys want me to make. Otherwise, though, I'll see you guys later. Peace.